Hi, my name's Nico. I was an analyst in the military, and I did open source intelligence, which about 2 or 3 years ago I started to get into competitive Apex. And I realized because uh, the ALGS teams have like POVs for every pro team, I realized that how pro teams play and loot POIs is all open source. So about two to 3 years ago, I kind of compiled um, how pro teams play and loot every POI on Ward's Edge and Stormpoint. I recently kind of updated them, and I wanted to share my Ward's Edge POI doc here today. If you want the quick version of this video, go to the end for about the like 10-minute version, where I'll go over like POI pick order and power rankings, just kind of how I rank every POI here. But so it's gonna be a long one. This is 30 pages. Kind of going over loop paths and how to play every POI here. Um, Without further ado, I think I'm just gonna go straight into it. For Skyfork West, this one's a ultra safe loop path, faster and ultra safe uh, loop path. It's gonna take about 2 minutes. Um, and why it's ultra safe is that I found that there's a sneaky rotation here into um, lava fissure, and it's because like if you rotate on the jump tower or like through countdown or skyhook, like that can be a little bit dangerous. Like I do have this path taking the jump tower here. Should be pretty early. So you shouldn't have that many problems. So you can always go just like walk it into this side. And I think it can be kind of a sneaky strong rotate this backside, especially since there's an arsenal here. And then you kind of can sneak behind, like when you're, Skyhook West is a hard edge POI. So kind of sneaking behind a team is pretty good when you're playing that hard edge. Anyway, I have the pink path just immediately landing on the prowlers and doing them. You want to do trials as quick as possible. I know like Vorholst was able to do the prowlers in like a minute. Realistically, it's probably going to take most people about a minute and a half or a minute 15 to a minute and a half, and then you have, we'll say like 30 seconds just to loot these top bins and kind of make your way to the jump tower. If you are concerned, like you do need to be careful of the countdown team potentially shooting you off of it. So if you are concerned about that, you can always just like rotate backwards here. The red path, you typically, which I'll show in a second, but you typically want to land like as far out as possible. However, this one, the loop path I have here is pretty shorter, and it is kind of ultra safe. Of like if you do these loop paths, I'd be really surprised if you run into like very surprised if you run into any problems with the Skyhook East team. But traditionally, you do kind of want to play a little bit of a riskier one to get extra loot. But these are gonna take probably about 2 minutes. You want to be rotating. There is like a handful of Evo Harvester spawns, either like on the Raven thing in the open here, or yeah, generally it's kind of around here which you can get. Um, yeah, the blue path can land on the arsenal here. If it's not an arsenal you want, you can always get the land on like either these buildings or just on the bin is fine. Um, I wouldn't go for this arsenal. That one you're just kind of giving to the east team. Like if you try to land on there with a red path, I think that's a little too dangerous. You can get this back arsenal, like if this is a light or heavy or whatever you want. You could land on that arsenal, or just get it at the end. This is a little bit confusing, and also a little bit more traditional. But this is also specifically for if your beacon character, if your ring console legend is like an altar or a pathfinder or someone that needs blue shields in order to scan the ring console. Because if that is the case, and you want that player to do the trials, so they can get two blue shields by just shooting the prowlers, and then by the time they're done with it, they're going to be on blue shields, and they can go, or even heck, even like purple shields, because there's typically Evo cache spawn, which is why on both the paths you kind of have one of the players go later, just in case, just to pick up any like backpacks or Evo caches, if they need it. Um, but in any case, I have the light blue path here is only if this arsenal is really good, and you can either have the blue player land there or the red player can land here. And if the red player lands like on this backside, then they'll get all of the bins like on the top of trials and on the side of trials. And the pink path just like jumps, immediately does trials, and then walks through the tunnel and goes straight to the beacon. Um, and if if the red path is taking the blue path because this arsenal's really good, the blue player can, instead of zipping up to trials, they can instead just follow along with this purple path and loot some of the red path's buildings. This is kind of a little bit more traditional. Like I know, at least I remember Alliance literally landed on this. Is also these VODs are really old, so take it with a grain of salt. However, this is a very like Ward's Edge has been in the competitive scene for years, so it is a pretty like solved map, so to speak. So I wouldn't expect things to be to change a whole lot really. Um, but in any case, I know, like I remember that Alliance would literally land on this building, which is pretty risky. But they generally it should be fine. You can always land like one building closer if you want to be safer. But this it's like I believe it's those like two stack weird kind of buildings. But this it has a lot of loot, so if you can land there, that is preferred. Um, and also like if you are kind of landing back here, then the blue player just kind of ignores these buildings and just sticks to the main loot here. Um, trying to yeah, this one's gonna take probably closer to 3 minutes is the idea. Um, you kind of like again, this is a hard edge POI. You can take honestly even like it might be closer to 3.5 minutes really. And you definitely do want to maximize the loophole as much as possible. Get the power of Skyhook West is the prowlers here being able to being the only like wildlife on the map. It's able to get your Evo shields up, which kind of just means you can fight on blue or even like get to purple before other teams can. Um, so yeah, and there's like high tier loot that spawns there, so it is very powerful. You do this plan is for taking the jump tower late, which again you do need to be worried about the countdown team trying to shoot you off. However, the idea is that this is late enough that the teams around you have probably looted, but if this is like if it happens to be a skyhook zone, for example, you might need to play pretty differently. And you definitely don't want to take this jump tower if it happens to be a skyhook zone. Moving on to Skyhook East, this you want to get as much loot as possible, but you definitely don't want to hard push the West team. Just like I do recommend playing it a little bit safe, but you also definitely don't want to give them give them space. And generally speaking, you do know that the Skyhook West team is probably going to send someone to do prowlers. So there is a good chance that they land split, and you can take advantage of that if you want. It's certainly if you have recon about like how teams are landing, you could easily catch the like a player landing at this building or even one up north. But this is just trying to like each player gets their own arsenal, which you can mix and match if you need to, or kind of have players rotate to whatever arsenal's good. There is um like you do have priority to the vault here, which can be really good if you're playing edge, like if it is a far zone. But like just getting that high tier loop from the vault is can be quite good. If there is a beacon spawn here, I recommend waiting and rotating there as a 3-man just to kind of scout it out and make sure it's safe. But if there is a ring console scan, you do generally want to go for it. But also I want it, it is kind of in the open, and I definitely, you need to be cautious when going there. I don't have too much more to add. The red path can kind of cut short, or it can kind of continue looting these top buildings if you want. It's kind of like up to how the team wants to play that, whether they want to rotate a little bit quicker or if they want to take more time looting. And you also like Skyhook East is also slightly dependent on how Skyhook West um, wants to loop and play it too. I definitely don't recommend contesting the train tunnel here and just kind of letting Survey Camp have that. I think contesting it just does not work well for either team. And generally, I think actually playing for the vault here, if you have if you happen to get the vault key is a very good plan. Or trying to like catch a team off guard is totally fine as well. Um, Moving on to Survey Camp. This one's um, a little bit untraditional. Kind of my experimental path for it. However, I think it is quite good. This is more playing for a slower rotation, kind of mid speed or even edge. You have the pink path. The idea is to let the pink path take as much time as they want, looting all of train tunnel. And if they do that, then they have a lot of loot. Like they have more than enough loot to play a good edge game. And also with this one, you're kind of letting the blue player get all of the loot in Survey Camp proper, because this is very not much loot at all. And this is also assuming there's a epicenter team, which is not always a team at at epicenter here. But the idea is that the red player here just kind of gives up the like lets the pink path take their time looting all of the train tunnel, and gives up the loot here in Survey Camp, so the blue player has all of that loot to themselves as well. And instead, you just spend your time looting this little bit of loot on the far north side of the map. You do have it landing on this arsenal. You could try to like reverse the path. The main problem here is that the zip line can only be taken from the low ground. You can't, it like up here it ends on a weird height thing that is inaccessible unless you're playing like maybe if you're playing a Pathfinder or something, you might be able to take it. But and you certainly can try to reverse these path, but I have this one just kind of landing on the arsenal, taking the zip up, which will kind of leave you very close to three spins, and then you need to walk almost a mile to the loop here in train tunnel. And the red player is going to have very little loot, but it's kind of okay because you just let the two other players have a ton of loot. So in a competitive setting, this is kind of fine, because two players are going to be well looted, and one player is kind of going to be in poverty. However, you given that two of the players are going to be well set up, they can just drop whatever loot you need. They can hold attachments for you. I think if you play this well as a three-man, where you're just kind of communicating what people need and you're dropping stuff for your teammates, is actually can work really well. Um, I don't think people realize how much loot here is in Train Tunnel, and if you really take your time looting all of it, then it sets this player up very well. It also isn't really enough loot to split, but it's more than enough for like 1.5 players. Um, which is why you kind of have that pink path drop stuff and share loot with the red player. There's a little bit of loot in Grandma's house. This is kind of the more traditional way to loot it that gets done in ALGS by pro teams. The problem with it is that the pink path here really has to rush through this train tunnel. Like if they rush through it, they can do it in a minute to a minute 30. But if you take your time looting all of it, it's going to be closer to a minute 45 to 2 minutes. And also the loot, like if you share the loot just here in survey camp, you do get both arsenals, which does help a lot. Because if you can either get both of them, or if one of them is good, then that's perfect. Like as well. But the problem is like just sharing these buildings is not necessarily ideal. It's actually quite bad. I've kind of only seen pro teams go for the loot north of here if there happens to be an assault bin, or like an extended assault or support bin, which there is very likely spawns up here. Like there's spawns here quite often. And like I don't know, I feel like playing more towards edge here can be quite good. The blue player can scan like after looting this building. They can just drop down and scan beacon early. So if you do have zone priority, you can kind of rush past and try to rotate quickly. But I think trying to maximize the loot is actually better than trying to play hard zone here, because I feel like if you take this more traditional path and you kind of rush through looting, you're not really setting up your to make a lot of plays because you're going to be so tight on loot for the whole game. You can rotate quickly with the jump tower from. There's a jump tower here. I don't necessarily recommend taking it, but you certainly can. Spawning one from the ring console is perfect, and the pink player here can also take like with either path. They can take much longer looting because, which they're probably going to anyway because they have the most to loot. But that's okay because this jump tower can mean they like you can essentially get to Grandma's house from there, which I'm not sure why it's called like this survey beacon house. It's called Grandma's house. It's just always been that way for years. There's very little loot, but this is typically the first rotation, and that there is a little bit like you can get these bins or potentially this arsenal that's good, and rotating from this jump tower can be quite good as well. So I do think the rotations from survey camp can be quite good. Moving on to epicenter, this one's a hard zone POI, and I don't think it's very good, but it certainly can be okay. You definitely want one player to loot the bridge here, because there is kind of a lot of loot here, and there's very little loot in epicenter proper. So you have at least like I have the pink path looting all of the bridge, and then taking the zip line to just kind of follow, getting the bins, moving up, and then can take this zip line to the very top of epicenter where the survey beacon is, and they can scan the beacon from there, and kind of decide to rotate. The blue path lands on these 3 bins and then slides down to get um all of the bins on the low ground. Can get this arsenal, and I have them getting this bin and moving to these 3 bins, which looks far, but it really isn't. And then from there they can kind of drop down and get these ones as well if there's time and you're realistic. There's a good chance to be rotating that way anyway. The red player I have landing on that um, building, which you could do a little bit differently, but I think this is pretty good. Just to get that loot and then sliding down. This is a hill, so you slide down this hill pretty quickly for those bins, and then looting just that side, the like layered, almost construction-esque side, and then can zip up to kind of a cliffside there. So you have like both the blue player and the red player on a cliffside, and then the pink player is going to be scanning beacon, and you end a little bit split, but can quickly meet up. And you have good lines of sight as well as beacons, potentially beacon scan, to plan a good rotation from epicenter. Climatizer, this is I think a little underrated, at least underrated when it comes to casual play, because there's a lot of loot here. It's a very good edge POI. You definitely want to take your time looting all of it, or looting almost all of it, and certainly getting any Evo spawns or extended supply bins that happen to spawn. But I have basically each player just gets their own side. I have the pink path getting this north building, the red one getting the south one, and then the blue getting the middle here. The blue path I have like landing on this arsenal and the bins, and then looting all of the middle and ending on the ring console. The red player is going to kind of be the closest to the jump tower to rotate, because the idea is that everyone's going to be taking the jump tower hopefully in like 2 to 2.5 minutes, but it's totally okay if it takes even an extra minute. And that extra minute can happen because you're going out of your way to get bins or Evo spawns. So it's totally fine to take like 3 minutes or even 3.5 minutes to loot this POI. But if you're just doing the exact loot paths as follows, it'll take you like you could do it in 2 minutes. You might have to rush it a little bit to do 2 minutes, but it's certainly more than possible to do it in 2.5. The pink path here just gets this side, gets those like 4 bins. Arsenal can get that arsenal too, and then takes gondola back as a quick rotation to the team and to the jump tower. The red path, because it's like closer, I think you can loot these buildings and those 4 bins. If the red path's like taking too long, you could just have them land on those 4 bins. The crafter, the replicator, kind of spawns right where my cursor is, kind of by the 4 bins, so everyone is also relatively close to the crafter if they want to use that. Yeah, it's not too much to say else about this. It's certainly a hard edge POI. You could try to like reverse the loop path or do it differently to where you scan the beacon earlier. That can be an option, and can be a little bit better if you just in case if you happen to have zone priority. However, this POI almost always plays hard edge, like unless if the zone's ending basically on you, like unless the zone's landing climatizer, you really don't. You kind of want to do this loop path, and you're kind of know if it's landing climatizer just by people rotating quickly to you. I guess like if there's a survey camp zone, you're probably just like the blue and red player might want to take like the gondola back to the pink player and rotate from there, but that's a little That's probably like pretty uncommon to happen. Onto Lava Fissure. It can be played in several different ways, kind of leaning from, I would say it's generally mid speed, but you could try to loot really quickly and play hard zone. This loot path's kind of setting up to try to get all the loot there. Typically, you would kind of skip this north side, but I think since Arsenal's got added, it's typically worth it to land up here in the red path, trying to get all of this north loot, and then getting these two buildings, and then from there, this zip line's on the low ground, so they can kind of drop down, take the zip line, and then take the jump tower. And as talked about before, the red path's probably going to take a little bit longer to loot, especially if they're thoroughly looting both these two buildings, because they have a like top ground and a low ground. And they also might want to scan beacon before rotating, or before like taking the jump tower. But again, the blue and pink path can kind of get a start on their rotate, and the red player can just fly on top. Excuse me, can fly on top of them with the jump tower. The pink path is kind of in charge of looting all of the middle area, landing on the arsenal, and just looting the middle side. The blue path lands on the ring console and can scan it very early. So if you do have zone priority, or if you do want to rotate quickly, that the you can try to rush through loot pass, or skip certain things like the, let's say you do have zone priority, the red player might just want to only loot the top side here and kind of ignore the low ground so they can rotate quicker. But it's also again up to how the team wants to play. From there, the blue path gets the southern building, and they should the blue and pink path like should be here for an easy rotate. They happen to like if you happen to want to rotate into countdown, I mean you can do that from either the south or north side. But like I guess if it's a Skyhook zone, for example, you could take the like this zip line as a blue player, or even the pink player, um, and kind of rotate north if you need to. This should take um probably under 2 minutes. You might need to like practice it a little bit just to get to that 2 minute mark. But no, this definitely can and should be done in about 2 minutes, or less. If you rush it, like again, if you try to play hard zone, you could probably do it in a minute and a half. But I think trying to maximize the loot is totally fine, especially like because this is kind of on the edge of the map, so you are typically going to play edge, but it obviously is just depends on the zone. Um, Moving on to countdown, I think this is quite underrated, or at least can be. I probably just a little bit though, but most teams do value countdown a little bit highly. This is a relatively standard loot path. Sometimes teams will loot it a little bit differently, but this is totally fine. You just try to get all of the loot here, and kind of separate it by the sides. The blue path, gets all of its north loot, and then can hit a little. There's a little pad here to activate the loot in the middle. Um, and they want to do that right before jumping down to scan beacon. You could try to scan beacon early if you want to, but this should take about a minute and a half. You might need to like practice it a little bit, but you can do this in a minute and a half. You do want to be rotating pretty quickly from countdown, but there is a lot of, or a fair amount of loot. Kind of a lot, all things considered. The red path kind of gets all the inconvenient loot to while the pink and red the I'm sorry, the pink and blue path gets a little bit more loot, but they can loot both this north and south buildings pretty quickly and efficiently, while the red path kind of just gets the inconvenient loot. Um, but the red and blue player can pretty easily get either arsenal. The pink player, they can land on this arsenal if you need to, but typically just trying to stick to this one, or as a team rotating to this one kind of in a no man's land. And it's fine to ignore these two these two spawns, but you're also likely to rotate that way anyway. With this loop path, you actually do not need to activate any of the walls. You can just leave them unactivated because the red path here takes a zip up, and you don't really need to ever activate them. Maybe like if it is a countdown zone, you might want to just because, but you definitely don't need to. The kind of power from countdown is that it is definitely a zone POI. It's not necessarily a hard zone POI, but and the power is that you're gonna be the first team that is well looted in zone, which means that you can like fight for God spot really early if you want to, because you're presumably going to be more looted than whatever hard zone team like rushed through their POI, and or even like potentially team that's like already looting or still looting their POI. But you can, yeah, that's just kind of, you have, I guess what I'm trying to say is that because you have more loot and are still a kind of hard zone team, you can make a really powerful early play to take a good position if you want to. So it's really nice. Like this POI allows you to make plays early, which is why I think it's quite good. Moving on to Mirage, this one's not so good, but it's fine. This one's also kind of generally mid-speed. You probably want to be rotating in under 2 minutes. You could do it in a minute and a half. I have the blue player looting all of the low ground because the beacon spawns low ground, and then this like arsenal here is low ground, and then they take like a zip up that's right here and can loot this the 3 bins here. The red player is gonna try to like loot all of Mirage proper. They might need to kind of go a little bit quickly, but this can be done relatively fast. They land on top, activate the party, get like the bin on top and the couple loot spawns, and then can drop down, kind of go inside and loot this sort of backside, and then go up, get the arsenal, destroy all the little like balloons from the party, and then can kind of go into the bar area, loot that, and then take the zip to graveyard. You can kind of you can get as many of these bins as you want. This like first one here is pretty free, but it kind of depends. You should play it by ear depending on how slow or fast your other teammates are looting, or how slow or fast as a team you want to be rotating. The pink player I have, and you generally do want, like even most like pro teams do have the pink path looting, or one player looting all of this little like village area. And it's just to like spread out, have all players get as much loot as possible, and also with Arsenal spawn, it definitely makes this area much better. Yeah, and you can, the idea is that you all be taking the jump tower in about 2 minutes, and that's totally good. Moving on to saging. Saging I think is like the most underrated POI, perhaps in the entire game, certainly on this map. I think it is very sneaky good. The trick is that it's like it is a very hard zone POI. So you really want to be rotating, and honestly, about a minute. I think if you're rotating in under a minute in 15 seconds, you're too slow. A kind of like rule of thumb you could use is like the very second Evo spawn in, the team is deciding a where to rotate. Um, and like again, I think if you're rotating, we'll say 10 seconds after Evo spawns in, that's too slow, honestly. And this is this is the like quintessential like two gun and run type POI. Um, but on a competitive level, like that can actually be very good because that means you can get to zone way quicker than any other team. It means you can like rotate to an Evo way quicker than anyone else and potentially be on blue shields and then like catch a team off who's rotating or who's still looting. Because you're very close to landslide and harvester. So this is a hard zone POI, but you can either play that passively or aggressively here. Like you can play passively and just like try to play hard zone, get whatever spot, and that's fine. Or you can play really aggressively and rotate to get an Evo early and then fight a team because you like were the first one to get a Evo Harvester spawn. You also have priority to the Vault here. Um, you kind of share that priority with the Harvester team and the Landslide team. However, if you're this POI does loot faster than those two, typically speaking, not by much, but by a little bit. I mean the Landslide team can just basically land on the vault. So it kind of depends. But if you get a cargo bot here that has a vault key, you can rotate to vault. Within that minute. Um, so so that can also be a very powerful play. I have the red path landing on the arsenal, and then looting all of the low ground here and ending up on this building. And the idea is that if you it well um ideal currently crypto's been getting banned game one, but if you are playing crypto, you want them to be the red path so they can throw drone out right here, and then once they're at this building they can scan and potentially rotate into harvester. um if you guys want to rotate into landslide, like taking the zip here and rotating through inside here is like very can be very fast. The paths do end a little bit split. However, it only takes like 10 seconds to go from one side of the POI to the other. So it doesn't really matter that the paths end a little bit split. And pink path is getting all of the north side. You can have them loot like this little side. Um, but again, it's the time is your biggest concern here. Um, of you really want to like rush looting with this POI, and rotate as soon as possible. Like how like a lot of pro teams, like when they're playing hard zone, they will literally rotate before Evos even spawn in, and from staging that is kind of what you want to do, but you can wait for Evos to spawn and then immediately rotate. It is also totally fine. Um, oh, the one of the reasons why this is kind of the best zone POI is because you can rotate very quickly to landslide or harvester. And the power in that is that if you don't get a ring console spawn, but landslide or harvester gets a ring console spawn, you can rotate to either or. So you kind of double or triple your chances of getting a ring console because the kind of sneaky power of this is that if you don't get a ring console, you can very quickly rotate to a neighboring, also hard zone POI that that may have a or will likely have a ring console spawn. Um, Reject like Winity, I kind of based this loop path like on how they played it. Um, was the land that they won. They really put on a like clinic of how to play this POI. Like they won from staging, and even the games that they did it. Like besides for the game that they won, obviously, like all of their games that they played from staging were absolutely beautiful. Like they played it so well. So if you're looking on for like a deep dive of how to play this POI and kind of why it's so sneaky good, um, that is I definitely recommend watching their POVs. It's from like 2 years ago, but it still holds up. Um, yeah, I feel like a lot of NA teams don't really like staging, but I think a lot of APAC North teams really understand how powerful it can be. Moving on to landslide, this is generally the hard zone POI that pro teams tend to like more. Um, and this also SCG Space Station won from landslide from here, and my loot path is like based off of how they landed, how a space station landed in that land that they won. Um, I included this beforehand so you kind of understand the surrounding loot from landslide, because just the loot in landslide proper is not very much. The arsenals do help significantly. Um, there really isn't much, and after arsenals have been added, you definitely want to send one player to get this to land on this arsenal and get that little thing. And they could try to get these bins if you want, or even just get that and take zip back. That can be a play. But also I have them just walking, and that's I think totally fine. Um, Again, how they landed was for one player to loot all of Vault Tunnel. And you could this can be a little bit of a negative rotation. Because there is a handful of times where you just like loot it and then just want to rotate right back. But you still should be able to loot all of Vault Tunnel and come back within like a minute and 15 seconds, because all that's basically all the loot one player is getting. I mean, they can get this arsenal as well. The red player gets all of this kind of side, and the blue player gets the beacon and this kind of northern side. Um, and if the blue player probably should have scanned ring console by the time the pink player is kind of about done looting the vault, um, or before that. So if it is like a southern zone, then the pink player can kind of just hold the in the mouth of the tunnel, and wait for the teammates to just rotate south through the tunnel. So they don't always like negative rotate, but yeah, I this is how they how Space Station looted it. I think I didn't want to throw out that, especially with legend bans, I think Loba could be like Loba is not very competitively viable. Um and like she just is not her kit is just not suited for competitive play. However, she can unlock vaults without needing the key. So especially I think later in a set, because of legend bans, she could be sneaky good from here because her being the taking the pink path here, and unlocking the vault and getting that like high tier loot, I think can be kind of insane. Um, but again, she's just so out of the meta, like so much of an off meta pick, because her kit's just not very good for competitive play, that you might want to wait till later in a set when there's already been like 5 legend bans, for example, and then you know what? Maybe Loba is a actually could be a legitimately good pick. Moving on to Monument. This one, Monument's a little strange and can be kind of hard. Like a lot of these POIs that are big and in the middle of the map can be really hard to play. Monument is not as bad as some other ones like Energy Bank or Quarantine Zone on the Broken Moon. But Monument can definitely run into the problem of it's in the middle of the map and it's too big to loot all of it. And this path is also assuming there's not a fragment team. If there's a fragment team, you might just all three have to land a Monument side. And also, its path is intended to scan Ring Console early, because again, you're in the middle of the map, so a good amount of the time you're going to have zone priority, and that just means you can scan beacon early and rotate rather quickly, and cut these loop paths really short. If you don't have a beacon spawn, or if zones really happens to be really far away, which sometimes can't happen, like for a thermal zone, for example, or a dome zone, then trying to take your time and looting all of it is ideal. But again, if you take too long looting, then you run into problems with POIs like this where teams are going to be rotating into your POI while you're still looting and you're not ready, and they can kind of catch a player off guard, and then just kind of ruin your game. So this is one where I would play it pretty differently if you have if you get a ring console spawn versus not get one. And this also includes like if you get one and the zone is relatively close. Like if that is the case, then you can cut the red path short by basically ending on the streamer building, scanning, and then using the orange path to just loot the bridge and rotating quickly to team. The pink path is probably not going to loot this building or any of the south side, and just kind of they can loot this side and then as much as this middle monument as they can. Blue path kind of does similar of them lining up these 3 bins and then going to this like construction layer thing, scanning beacon, and then looting as much as this middle. And if you follow these like paths as it is, you're probably going to take like 2 minutes to 2.5 minutes. You definitely like it also kind of depends on how fast the epicenter team or survey camp team is looting and rotating. That's kind of why you have the pink path loot this north side earlier. And you should be careful as a red player. They can kind of from this train station area, they can kind of scout and see if there is a team over here from like epicenter. And there is one, and you obviously don't want to rotate to those bins, and you can just skip them. But if you do have zone priority, then you can really try to just like rush the loot pass and skip a handful of the loot, and rotate in under 2 minutes. Trying to kind of aim for 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes if you to kind of lean into it, like if you have zone. Um, yeah, Monument can be a little bit tricky, but generally I think it is quite good. Currently, Fragment is unplayable in competitive play. All it really needs is a ring console to be viable in high level competition. It never gets picked. I've seen it. I've seen people play it in scrims and whatnot. You can get it in ranked, and I don't know. It's kind of like good luck. However, you have survey beacons to play off of, and it's honestly like not that bad in lower tier lobbies, but because you don't have a beacon, like a ring console scan, and you're stuck in between like a bunch of different teams, it's just really not a good not a good POI at all. It almost always goes undrafted. Moving on to Overlook, and this is also assuming there is no fragment team. And this is my loop path for it. However, Overlook is probably the most variable POI out there. Because there is one, two, three, four, five arsenals here. Um, and they're not all gonna be good. You probably like one of them is likely to be a shotgun arsenal or a sniper arsenal, and you're probably gonna want to skip it. But these loot paths, I have them just encompassing all of them just in case. And the blue player here can, I think, getting these 5 bins and ending up on this like kind of fragment and vault side can be good, but if you want to loot it like a little bit more traditionally, you'd kind of just probably land close to the essentially reverse the loot path, and you land on these bins, can scan survey or can scan ring console early, and kind of end up about where I have the star, like where they're supposed to land at. Um, and from there you can rotate to the jump tower. But I think having this side and just kind of maximizing the loot. And this is for like playing very hard edge. Um, I think this is totally fine, especially like when there's not a fragment team. Like you really are not that worried about like there's this side of the map's pretty dead. Like you do need to be somewhat mindful of the climatizer team, of course, and then the geyser team, and then I guess a little bit the monument team slash the epicenter. But generally, like the side of the map is just um relatively empty. So the idea is that you play hard edge, you spread out, and each player loots it as much as possible. Again, if these arsenals suck, then you just land on the bins here in loot south. You could also land in fragment, and kind of reverse this path too. I have the pink path landing on that bin, in that arsenal. If one of these, sometimes these 2 bins are extended like weapon bin or support bin, and sometimes they can be good to get if that is the case. But generally, I think that's a little bit too out of the way. They kind of loot this little like villagey side and get all the looted middle. And I have it to where the blue and red player kind of end up. This looks far, but it actually is kind of close. And then the pink player like just takes jump tower to fly and meet up with the team. And this is also like pretty isolated, um, which is kind of the idea of like you end up a little bit hopefully like safe and isolated. You can, if there happens to be a fragment team or you happen to be a hard zone team, then y'all can all land like in Overlook proper, like don't spread out. Yeah, you can just like kind of have the blue player loot kind of you probably just want them to like loot this side, have the pink path, like loot the village, get you can kind of R3 loot these bins a little bit and get you if you're playing hard zone, you can like loot all the you can get all the loot in Overlook proper with and be taking jump tower like within a minute 30 to a minute 45. However, I think this POI plays a lot better edged, even hard edge. Um, Given its isolation and given how much loot there is if you spread out. And that can take between 2 to 3 minutes. Is like these loot paths are probably like I shown is probably going to take you closer to the 3 minute mark. But you don't always want to do that. Like it's totally like even from here you can like you don't need to get these 5 pins south. You can just pop a jump tower or yeah from the ring console and rotate with that as well. Moving on to Harvester, I think this is one of the weaker zone POIs, and that's just because it has less loot than any other. Um, and honestly, I really miss it having a gold like loot spawn here. And I think it not only made it fun, but it also made it much better. Which without that, I think this POI is actually quite lackluster. Um, I have you want to be like looting kind of the within the 45 seconds to a minute 15. Um, like you like it is a hard zone POI. You want to be rotating in about that minute mark. I have the blue player landing on the arsenal and then rotating to getting um the ultimate low ground. And they can kind of get both arsenals if this arsenal sucks they can land on the low ground or even land on like this bin or these bins and sort of reverse the path if you want. I have the red player landing on this bin. You can, for time's sake, you can have them just land on like these two, or even land on the arsenal with the blue player. That's again kind of up to RNG, like up to whatever the arsenal is, or and up to the team and players. Um, this you can kind of poke your head in and get this spawn right here, or at the end you could slide down and get it. These two spawns by the survey beacon are on top. There's nothing in the low ground, so you don't want to go inside at all. You just kind of climb up, get the spawns, scan survey beacon if you're that character, and if you like want to, and then get like kind of walk up, get the bins on the ramp, and then just get this little side while you have the pink path landing on the floor bins in the very middle, and then they get this whole south side. These spawns are kind of the low ground. It doesn't have like top side thing, and yeah, uh, you can kind of end the rotate by going towards the arsenal. Um, Again, loot situation is a little bit tough, but the location isn't bad. You can have the jump tower to rotate, which can be a good option. The I would say Harvester is like kind of mid, but it's not too bad. Moving on to Lava Siphon. This one's pretty good. You kind of like each player gets their own mini POI, so to speak. Um, I have the pink path being a little bit longer, but I think you can actually loot all of this much quicker than it looks. And the blue player just gets all of the middle side, plus obviously they're scanning Ring console, hopefully, if you get the spawn. The red player, I have them landing on these two bins, and also if if they finish their like looting this building early, they could always loot the surrounding little buildings before taking the jump tower. Um, and it is just kind of variable of whether or not if the blue and pink player needs to go to the red side, or if the red player needs to take the jump tower path back to them. And also just kind of depends on timing of all the players, of whether or not you want to, whether or not as the red path you want to be taking more time to loot those northern buildings. Um, and the pink player, like if you have ring like zone priority, for example, they can kind of either not loot this side or rush through it. Um, like just the pink path looting all of this like command area is more than enough loot. But them rotating south is pretty easy. And then they can easily take like a gondola back, or the red the blue player can take a gondola on to either side. Um, but yeah, it's a mid speed POI. It's you kind of do want to be looting and rotating in about 2 minutes. Um, you the POI is kind of like too big to play hard zone. Like there's too much loot. Um, like you can certainly shorten it by a lot, but it's also a little bit isolated in a way. Um, so it doesn't really run into the like monument problem, or the problem of being a big POI in the middle as much, or in the middle of the map. Like it doesn't really run into that problem of teams rotating to you quickly, because it is a little bit more isolated. You do obviously need to be mindful, like it is certainly possible for like the tree team to rotate quickly, or harvester, of course, or geyser. Those are probably your like three main contentions, but you're a little bit far from where other teams are landing, so you can kind of take 2 to 2.5 minutes, looting pretty safely. Um, Lava Siphon can be kind of similar to Countdown. It can be a POI that's a little bit scary because you have a lot of loot. Um, so you can kind of play as like a little bit of like you have the loot of an edge POI, but you're in the middle of them, or in kind of the middle-ish of the map. So that kind of means that you could show up to um, zone in a mid-speed way with the loot of an edge team, and that is can be very powerful. Like this is again a POI where like fighting for God spot, or kind of fighting for a good early position can be quite good. Um, Moving on to Geyser, this one I've actually had a lot of like debates with other coaches of how how to loot it, and also how good Geyser even is. Um, Getting two arsenal spawns like decent. It kind of helps the loot situation a little bit. The main problem with Geyser is that it's like really isolated, and the rotations out of it kind of suck. Other than that, it's really not that bad. Also the loot is not great. But the loot paths as shown should take about a minute and a half. You are like you're looting as fast as a hard zone team, kind of, but you because of the positioning and the rotations out of it being a little bit rough and slow, you unfortunately you can't really rotate as quickly as you would want if you are a hard zone team, for example. So the like these paths are kind of trying to get a little bit kind of as much loot as possible. Um so you can potentially have a little bit more like play, but and these like it is pretty easy to do this loop path in like a minute and a half. The blue player gets like this building and the three bins here and here. And can scan beacon. It can activate the jump tower from it, and that can be a good early rotation. I have the pink player landing on the arsenal and on the vault tunnel. You don't really want to go in and loot all of the like laurel bins, but I think going in and looting these like four bins plus that like one that's on the way, um, it is a little bit out of your way, but I think you do want to get those five bins just because the loot situation is kind of tough. Plus, like if you don't loot this inside, then a peak player or at least one of the players is not gonna have very much loot at all. Um, like just looting these like big long buildings is there's not much loot in them, and they also can be done very quickly because it's just like one kind of straight line. Like these long buildings can literally be looted in like 15 seconds. At the red path, like landing on these buildings, getting all of that, and then ending kind of on the survey beacon. They can rotate north to get those two bins, or even further for that arsenal if that arsenal's really good. Or they like either from those bins or even from after scanning beacon, they can head to geyser and rotate with that. Um, Pink path kind of ends up the loot path ends at the geyser, so they can use that to rotate. The blue path can I have them going to the arsenal. There's also the crafter spawns like right around there, but also they can like either get those bins and kind of rotate back pretty easily. Like it doesn't take too long to like this looks like a lot, but it doesn't take super long to rotate through geyser. But rotating out of geyser is kind of the problem. There is like I've in the debates I've had with or like talks I've had with other coaches, there is an idea to loot the no name that's like in between geyser and kind of north of lava siphon. Um, but that's really hard to do with dropship. Since dropship was got added, like you can't really like you can sort of land on that like building like on the hill cliff thing, um, but you really can't land on that like kind of no name choke area, um, which unfortunately means that you're just too separate from your team, as well as that kind of whole choke area takes a decent bit to loot all of it. And if you take too long, you can have a lot of problems with teams rotating through that choke, like a quickly rotating harvester team or even lava siphon. So generally, I think just kind of sticking to geyser proper is the plan, and instead you go for the loot in vault, which has been done. I can't remember if Liquid Alienware looted inside Vault or not, but I definitely remember seeing some teams looting inside some teams, some pro teams on ALGS looting the inside of Vault. Moving on to Big Mod. This is it's an edge to hard edge POI, but it also doesn't really take that long to loot. Kind of taking about a minute and a half to a minute 45. Like you really shouldn't be taking longer than 2 minutes to loot this POI. The the plan the plans that I like to do is have the pink player land on top here and get these two little pads, like loot spawns, on the top, and then they can drop down to the shop and unlock a gun. Um, and then they can rotate like and loot the bottom floor of it, and they can end up on the side here. get these two bins, get these outside bins, or just kind of rotate back into and pick up whatever gun you unlocked at the beginning. The blue player can either land on these bins or on this little like hut thing. They can quickly scan ring console, rotate around, and then end up at the shop as well. For the other gun or for a gun that even the pink path may unlocked early. The other red player landing on this like south side, like the low ground, and then taking a zip up. I actually think the zip's over here where my cursor is. So they might have to rotate a little bit off. Take the zip up, and then they loot all of the northern side. Well, I'm sorry, all of the top side. They get the top. The pink player gets the bottom. And you kind of divide it that way. And then the blue player gets all of this northern paintball area, which is kind of a lot. The power from this POI is that because you can get a fully kitted gun from the shop early, and there's a lot of loot here that you can loot pretty quickly. It means it's actually Big Mon's really good early, but it doesn't really have the staying power of a zone POI or of an edge POI late, because the like kitted gun you get in the shop is not going to be very good late game, but does have is going to be better than the guns your opponents have in the early game. So it's actually quite good to play aggressively from here. I recommend, if you are like trying to fight a team, I kind of recommend fighting the Geyser team rather than the Stacks team, just because the Stacks have a good position on you, because you have to cross the open here, as well as the Stacks has a lot of loot, when Geyser does not have very much loot, and you also rotating from hill, you have a kind of good position on the Geyser team. So even like as a Geyser team, you kind of want to rotate quickly so you don't run into the big mod team being the like a pretty good edge team on your back. Yeah, I generally don't really like this POI because it is good early, or it's good to play aggressive early, and I don't think taking fights in I don't think taking fights early in competitive is a good idea, because it's very high risk. Dying in 20th or 19th and just getting a 0-point game is atrocious. But if you are like if you're an edge team, this can be a good POI to take late. Or even if you're a team that just likes fighting early, and not afraid to take fights early, then this actually can be a good POI for you. Moving on to Stacks. This is kind of a hard edge POI because it's further, like it is on the edge of the map, as well as there's a lot to loot here. It should take probably closer to 2.5 minutes, even 3 minutes. Honestly, you do have the vault right here, and you kind of have priority to the vault. And like you can kind of wait to even go to like rotate into vault late, because you're gonna know if any team tries to rotate there early, whether it's like the dome team or the big mod team. It can be tricky to play if there's both a big mod and dome team, because you're kind of sandwiched in between them. The blue path definitely wants to scan this ring console early. I have them like looting this building and then immediately rotating to scan ring, because if they do it any later, then because it's so in the open, you can run into problems of the dome team having a good like having lines of sight on you. And what I actually like to do for when it comes to looting this POI is getting these two bins and then taking zip line across. Also, if this arsenal is good, they can like jump off and get it. Um, the blue player kind of loots this building, gets the arsenal, and then loots this whole like construction area. Um, this isn't. I tend to see teams skip where I have the pink path landing, but there's like this building is out of the way. However, it actually has a lot of loot here, so I think it's pretty ideal to have a player land there, get that, and then just rotate to the arsenal, and then they can get these two buildings and finish on this big building. The red path just kind of loots all of the big middle building. Um, yeah, I think sex can be good, um, but it's definitely a kind of old school POI. Formal, I think, is definitely it is the POI. What the heck? That leans edge the absolute most. Like it is a very hard edge POI. It's actually fine to take longer than 4 minutes looting, but you know, between 3 and 4 minutes is perfect. It is extremely isolated. And there's like a lot of loot, so the idea is that you spread out, and you loot as much as possible. Like there's you know these little villages and the train station here, and you can just loot all of it. Um, like I think this is basically the best hard edge POI, but also Skyhook West is just kind of so broken getting the because of evos and getting the trials loop, and your evos up because of trials. But Thomald is like not that much worse. It is very good hard edge POI. Um, the pink path getting all of this southern area. If they're the crypto player, like if you're playing crypto, you want them to be you want them to take the pink path because they can kind of get both this beacon and even fly their drone to get the beacon and tree. You can run into. You need to be a little bit careful of the tree team, but it's usually pretty safe. I wouldn't really go for these bins unless if they're like an extended bin, for example. But um, yeah, the pink path kind of elutes all of this, and then can take jump tower wherever. Of the blue path, they're landing on the top, like very height of middle. A lot of people kind of forget or not or don't realize that there's actually several loot spawns like on the very top of thermal, and then they drop down and loot all of the middle side, and then they can go to the train side, which honestly the pink player like can also fly over there and help them loot this side. The red path loots all of the southern side. You can kind of ignore this bin, it's a little bit too out of the way. Um, and then they take the zip up here and loot this side too. You can also ignore these bins. There's often an extended like weapon or support bin there, so it can be good to get them, but also it's totally fine to skip them. Um, yeah, I would just say, and also if they need to cut their loot path short, they do have a jump tower here. Like, they can loot like all of this, and then instead of looting like this side and taking the zip up, they can always just take jump tower. Um, like the blue path can scan beacon pretty early, so if it happens to be a thermal zone, you can kind of know. I would say you can rotate like quickly to like if you have zone priority, but you really like I don't know if it happens to be a tree zone or a um harvester slash staging zone. Um, you're really going to be the only ones on this side, like on that edge, like on that side of the map anyway. So it's like still fine to take 3 to 4 minutes looting, because you're going to be the only ones on that edge. Like you are gonna, um, like you're not really gonna have problems. Like there's really not a super huge reason to um rotate super quickly to zone if you have zone priority. Um, and if the zone is ending in thermal, that's kind of the only reason to try to group up. Like if you see whether you scan it off of the ring console or you see teams rotating in through the chokes, you might want to kind of group up very quickly and just play from wherever you can, really. It can, like, thermal zones can kind of be pretty hard to read too of where it goes exactly. Moving on to tree. This is, I would say, like, I like tree, but it's pretty like medium at best, really. It's a it's kind of a mid-speed rotation. It's also assuming a northern rotate's okay because there's a handful of loot like on the like just north of tree, so you can kind of loot while sort of making your first rotation. Um, have the red player landing on the arsenal and then looting the back little three buildings that are connected. And then they can either rotate to this arsenal or this arsenal. Doesn't really matter. Um, it can also get either like uh, rotate to any loot that the blue player pings, or can also like get this little truck just because. But realistically, they just get this back building and then whatever arsenals they want, and then just rotate kind of to jump tower and to team. The pink path lands on, there's a little truck here that the bin is on, and then they loot the um, buildings kind of in the middle, like sulfur flat thing. The blue path, I have landing middle, getting the loot, scanning beacon early, and then I kind of like them taking the zip and getting this side, like this little building, and then they um, can kind of they can rotate and these, get that arsenal and get these bins on the side pretty easily and efficiently. The red path also is like presumably going to be your recon legend, which they can certainly loot this building too. Like that's a pretty easy on the way rotation. You could even do like blue player loots inside, red player gets the outside two bins. Um, doesn't really matter, and also A, you might not even be playing a recon legend, and B, that recon legend could be crypto where it doesn't really matter. You can just fly the drone to the beacon, so it doesn't really matter. The timing for the loot paths here is a little bit hard just because you're kind of looting while making your first rotation. But generally, you probably should be done looting like tree proper within a minute and a half, and kind of be at your like first rotation within that like 2 minutes. Or even like taking a jump tower like within 2 minutes, I think is totally good. So for launch site here, I included a little bit of my experimental loot path. Um, this is not like traditional. If you want a more like traditional one, just kind of have the red player loot all of the southern side, and then the blue player can kind of loot this side plus middle. And then the pink player just kind of has this building and even like this building while you're rotating. But my idea here is that launch site is a hard edge POI, like it's on the very edge of the map, and also with arsenals being added to the game, there's, I mean, this path gets 5 arsenals, but there's 4 here, and I think you can actually play this to where the red path lands on this arsenal, or even like you can have them land on like this bin or those 3 bins if this arsenal isn't good. Um, but they like land on this arsenal, loot this side of the building, take zip, get the 3 bins, and then they can quickly rotate to the jump tower that also has another arsenal right next to it. And I think you can actually just fly to the geyser here, loot like get an additional arsenal, loot like 3 bins plus a little building that's here, and then they can take the geyser um to like this building, and you're theoretically be right by your team. Um, so again, a little bit experimental, but I have them like taking this jump tower early and quickly rotating to where no one's really gonna be, um, and then being able to take come back with the geyser. Um, you do need to be a little bit worried of the dome team shooting you from this jump tower, but I think like you don't want to take the jump tower late because the dome team can shoot you off of it. But I'm pretty sure this red path is rotating to it quick enough. Like I think you can loot this side like within 30 to 45 seconds. Um, so I think you're taking this jump tower before the dome team has finished looting. You can always speed it up if you need to. Um, but again, this idea is like you're going to be playing hard edge anyway, so like why not maximize the loot? So the blue can get all of this bottom side, half of the building plus middle side, and the pink player can kind of get all of the building and share this building or kind of get a jump looting it. I have it to where the pink path can either like they can both land on the arsenal, or the pink path can land on the spawn here, and the blue player can activate the walls there. Um, kind of just depends how you want to play it. Um, blue path can also rotate to that arsenal or the one back here. It is very like also if this arsenal just sucks, you might not even want to go that way. And the red player can not even take the like if you don't want to take the jump tower like because you're scared of getting shot off of it, you can just get this arsenal and then just walk it to this little building, so you have a little bit more to loot. And I think for the most part, the team is going to want to end their loop path on this southern lava siphon side. Um, but like most of the time, you're going to be kind of wanting to rotate north. Few occasions you might want to rotate tree, or I guess rotate like dome if it's a dome or a stack zone. But yeah, I think this honestly like even with this red path, like taking this jump tower, like I do need, and taking the geyser back, I do need to time it, but I'm pretty sure that this can be done in like 2 minutes. Um, yeah, like I don't even think this like loop path takes very long, and you are maximizing the loop and kind of trying to play hard edge. Again, your biggest concern is just a dome team, but I think this red path is actually can loot it pretty quickly. All right, last one is dome, and dome used to suck, but I think it's gotten way better with the addition of arsenals to the point where I think it's kind of good. Um, so I ran these loop paths before arsenals got added, and I was able to do it in. You have to rush it a little bit, but I was able to do it in a minute and a half. With arsenals being added, I think a minute and 45 seconds is probably the goal. Um, and yes, the red path like lands on this little mini dome here that has 4 little bins, and you can skip that if for timing's sake. However, again, this is a like dome is on the very corner of the map. You're almost always going to be having to play hard edge from here, and the loot is actually high, like all of this is high tier loot. Um, and you used to have a problem playing Edge from Dome because you didn't have enough loot. But adding 3 arsenals just like completely makes it to where their loot situation is quite good. Um, Even plus it is all high tier. But I do think that does mean you want to maximize your loot potential. I'm nearly positive this is how Liquid Alienware. I'm nearly positive they got these like 4 southern um little like bins in the mini dome, which I remember like this LAN this like finals it was before Arsenals and they made Dome look like very good. And they were able to like this loop path can be done pretty quickly. Um and it gets all of the loot. The blue path lands on this arsenal. The red path can pretty quickly get it if it's good. And then once the blue path pretty quickly scans beacon, gets all of this middle loot. The crafters, like right here at the end, all the 3 paths kind of converge on that middle like building round thing, which is pretty easy to kind of meet up and rotate from there. There's also crafter like that spawns right here, so any of the players can quickly craft as well if they need to. The blue player from this building can get either arsenal if they're good. The pink path landing on this little like truck, um, which the pink path is kind of the shortest, which is why I have them. They're going to be kind of the first ones done, which means that they can jump off the zip line here and loot these 3 little bins. And they can also scout out to like the pink path actually has an important job because they finish a little bit early and can scout out the launch site team. So because you're typically going to be wanting to rotate after launch site, like you kind of want to watch the launch site team rotate and then take this jump tower is like the goal or the plan. You can also like rotate into vault or like rotate however, but generally you are kind of waiting on the launch site team to rotate for you to rotate as a dome team. The other plan is to go to this ring console, and you can like if you don't have a ring console, you can 3-man rotate to this one and then jump and then use the jump tower, spawn a jump tower with that and rotate using that. Which that's another like good thing that Dome has about it is that this ring console is pretty close to you. So you kind of have 2 ring console potential spawns you can get. So like that can also be very powerful when it in a competitive setting. Um yeah, your pathing can vary a little bit based off of arsenal spawns, but again, like Dome used to be very bad, and now I actually think it is pretty decent. This finally ends on my POI draft pick order. And I think I forgot to say at the beginning, but I just wanted to let everyone know that the link to this document will be in the description. So if you can have it, if you're like tier 2 team that's playing in scrims, or heck, even if you are like ranked, if you're playing ranked, you can and it's drop ship, like you can certainly use these loot paths. But the idea is that for like scrims and whatnot, you can quickly pull up like whatever POI you're landing at, and you have a solid loot path right there. You can follow. But when it comes to the pick order, This is my pick order slash power rankings. It's hotly, honestly, POIs are like hotly debated. I think a lot of even a lot of pro teams I think have pretty wild pick orders or like just what they view as potentially like what they're willing to take really highly versus what sometimes even goes like undrafted, for example. Um, but starting off, I think my first three is like pretty normal. I agree with kind of the consensus that Skyhook West is the best POI on the map, just because the trials is so good. Like if like because it's Skyhook West and trials, just makes this kind of so makes it the best one to pick first. Thermal is honestly a very close second. Like if you just prefer landing at thermal, honestly, thermal tends to be safer, because it's much more isolated. And I think it's actually totally reasonable to take thermal first pick. Climatizer, I think is kind of another very good hard edge POI, but I do think it's a step below Skyhook West and thermal. It is still like very good. Countdown I have as a number four, which I think is most people might view as a little high. Um, and my reasoning is just because I think it is the best zone or even hard zone POI on the map. Like I think if you're a hard zone team, then you want to take Countdown as your like you want to kind of um have that as your priority if you're not getting like a much worse POI, which you can play zone from. But like if you're wanting a good zone POI, I think Countdown is that. You like you can loop very quickly. You can vote. You have really good rotations from it. Um, and like again, the Countdown just has more loot than any of the other zone POIs, which just makes it kind of a step above the rest. It's also so close to like Skyhook, and for whatever reason, Skyhook zones just happen to be really popular, or happen to be really common on like this is on Ward's Edge. This is like a known problem of like all the POIs kind of close to Skyhook gets a little bit better. Which Countdown has a very easy and good rotation into Skyhook, so it's just it's quite good for that reason. Lava Siphon, it used to be like kind of the number one, like way back in the day. It kind of used to be considered the best POI on the map. It's gotten quite a bit worse. It still like has a lot of loot, has pretty good rotations because you're kind of in the middle, and it doesn't have kind of that monument problem I talked about. Of with monument, you are like it's a big POI in the middle ish of the map, and the problem you can run in with those POIs is that surrounding teams are going to be rotating very quickly through your POI. But Lava Siphon is a little bit more isolated, just kind of because of how it is. So you can kind of spend a little bit longer looting it versus Monument, where you might very quickly have the Epicenter team or like survey camp team rotating quickly through your POI, kind of meaning you need to loot much quicker than you want to. Which is kind of why I put Lava Siphon. I view them as pretty as about the same, but Lava Siphon a little bit better, mostly for that reason. Staging I have extremely high, and that's like because of kind of what I said. I think staging is the most underrated POI on the map. I think if you have good macro from staging, like you know how to play like hard zone, you're like good with zone calls. You know you can, and you know even if you don't have beacon, you can very quickly rotate into either landslide or not overlook. Uh, Harvester. You can very quick, like if you don't have a beacon in staging, you can very quickly rotate into either Harvester or Landslide and get their beacon. Which both of those are also hard zone teams, so they're going to be, if they do have a beacon, they're going to be scanning beacon and rotating quickly, and then you'll be right behind them as the stacks team. So you kind of can double your, or double, kind of triple your chances of getting a ring console scan or ring console spawn. Um, as it's not just the one in staging you can get, it's also the landslide and harvester one that you can get pretty quickly. So I think staging is just sneakily one of the best zone POIs out there. You just need to know how to play it. Um, Loot situation is tough, but you can play like an economy legend, like a Watson is. That is kind of another thing of like, you do want to play Watson from staging. Watson is definitely helps you play hard zone from staging and help your like shield economy so much. Landslide has a close second. Also, like I do just want to mention, both staging and landslide have a land win. When I don't think like Skyhook West, Thermal, and Climatizer do, but staging and landslide have like, there are POI that has one land. Staging was Reject Winity, and then Landslide was Space Station. Um, but Landslide also has like a really, well, both of them really has a decent rotation into Skyhook. But Landslide is, I think most people kind of view, they tend to pick, like landslide gets picked much sooner than staging. Staging typically goes like really late. And as such, just like because of metagaming, I probably wouldn't actually take staging as high as seventh, but I think it is kind of good enough to take seventh. But staging and landslide typically go a little bit later than that. Sometimes landslide does get picked like pretty early. But even eighth is like pretty high for landslide. But I just think they're so good. Zone POIs, like if you are a good zone team, I think they are. Um, they're just really good POIs. Stacks I have as ninth. The only like problem with stacks is just position. Um, like it is a really good hard edge POI, similar to Skyhook West, Thermal, and Climatizer. The problem is that, like when it comes to like Thermal and Climatizer, they're isolated. They're isolated edge POIs. Stacks is not an isolated POI. It has both Dome and Big Mod right there, so it can play a little bit rough. But other than that, it's a very good edge POI. Overlook is pretty similar in that regard. Overlook, it's way worse if there's a fragment team. If there's not a fragment team, I think like taking 10th is pretty good. And I think this is probably like about average. Like I don't think I think most people kind of view Overlook as about a mid level, like average ish POI. Um, and it can be good. I think it is a good kind of edge or even hard edge POI, where in kind of the power of it is like, because fragment almost always goes undrafted as it should be. Overlook is able to also loot fragment, and because of that, it just kind of becomes a good edge POI. Lava Fissure, I think Lava Fissure is pretty good. You have like Jump Tower, so it kind of makes rotations out of it pretty easy, but it's also like an edge-ish POI. Um, and it's I think Lava Fissure is solid. Like I'm certainly not disappointed with Lava Fissure. Tree is kind of when I'm like, in a way, starting to get disappointed, but also Tree is like totally fine. Yeah, Tree, like I really The only thing about Tree I have to say is like it's just fine. Like it's not bad, but I also like I definitely don't think it's all that good. Um, Survey Camp I probably have much higher than a lot of other people, and that's just because I think my loot paths for it are quite good. And I think the positioning is really good. Your rotations from Survey Camp is can be very good as well as you're close to Skyhook. So I don't know. Like I think Survey Camp is like a little bit underrated, but I also don't view it as all that good. I think Harvester is actually a bit overrated. I like Harvester is just a zone POI that has less loot than all the other zone POIs. Um, like even Survey Camp, like, and it's mostly because Survey Camp has the train tunnel. Like the train tunnel has so much loot in it, so if you just allow a player to like take their time looting it, then I think Survey Camp suddenly just kind of has a lot of loot. Um, and I think that can be very good if you allow that player to just loot all of train tunnel, like take their time looting it, and have the other two players like share the rest of Survey Camp, and I yeah, like I think Survey Camp can actually be have a little bit of hidden strength to it. Um, yeah, Harvester, I think it's kind of the worst zone POI. It's fine. I just think you're struggling with loot more than the other zone POIs, and I think the location's like a tiny bit worse than like Landslider staging, but it's fine. Dome, I have quite high here, and honestly, I think if you're like, I think if you are a edge team, like a hard edge team, I think Dome is reasonable to take as high as Tree, really. Um, I think since the arsenals got added and Dome gets three arsenals plus kind of four, as well as the beacon in stacks. You kind of the not beacon but the ring console in stacks is also very close to Dome, so you kind of have a lot more going for Dome, and it's all high tier loot. Um, so I think Dome, like, it used to suck. It used to be the like 20th pick POI or even go undrafted, and I agreed with that. But given like since the update to add arsenals to the game, and then Dome just getting three arsenals, suddenly like it just has plenty of loot. Which now Dome is I think a totally good or fine POI. And I think you can actually take it much higher than 15th, but I would probably, you know, take it there. But I think you can make an argument for it being better than 15th. Mirage I have as my 16th pick POI. I think it's probably about average. Mirage typically doesn't get picked super early. It's I think totally fine. Like it's okay. It's not great. And I think most pro teams don't really consider it all that good, but they think it's like it's also totally fine. Um, like you can have good games from Mirage. Launch site, I think again, I think a lot of people might have it a little bit higher. I just don't like launch site's position. Like it on the map, I think it's just like kind of an edge or mid speed. Um it doesn't really have as much loot as you want for a hard edge POI, but it is also on the edge of the map to where you're probably going to have to play hard edge anyway, but it doesn't quite have the loop for that. So I think you actually tend to struggle a little bit when landing at launch site. So I have it a little bit. I don't think it's terrible, but I have it a little bit late. Geyser. I actually think like some people view Geyser as better, some worse. I have seen it go undrafted in POI drafts. But I think 18 is like actually pretty reasonable for the POI. It is not great, but also fine. Um, I kind of already outlined my kind of problems with Geyser, but the main one is just the rotations out of Geyser are really tough. And it also doesn't have very much loot. I should kind of mention that on that Ward's Edge has less loot than any other map, which means that these like hard edge POIs get really good because they just have a lot more loot. And these hard zone POIs can be a little bit rough. And the zone POIs that have a little bit more loot, like Countdown, um, are pretty good, or even like Monument and Lava Siphon having Monument and Lava Siphon I wouldn't necessarily consider zone POIs, but they're also kind of in the middle of the map, so you typically have pretty decent rotations to zone. But yeah, Geyser I just think is tough. I yeah, I don't know. I just your rotations out of Geyser suck. Plus, it doesn't have very much loot. But I also think it's um I also think it is playable. It's not good, but playable. Skyhook East. I kind of like Skyhook East, but the problem is simply that it doesn't have a ring console, and that makes it a 19th pick. If you like happen to get a ring like if had a ring console spawn guaranteed, then like it would be much better. But the problem is you have to fight Skyhook West for the ring console, and that's often not very winning. Um, it it can just be a little bit tough to play from Skyhook East. But my reason for it kind of being in that 19th is also part of that thing I talked about earlier about for whatever reason Skyhook zones just tend to be tend to be common. Like they tend to be more common than other zones. It is I don't think there's any hard data around it, but that's just kind of there's a lot of anecdotal data from it. It's sort of a known thing in competitive play that Skyhook zones tend to be a little bit common. And I think as such, just like having Skyhook is landing at Skyhook is pretty good. Um, you do have like priority to the vault, which can be quite good, and also the loot in Skyhook East is quite good. Like you do have reasonable loot, so I think it's totally fine. But I certainly want to pick it very high. Epicenter I have as my 20th pick POI. You you get a ring console, and that is good. But Epicenter is just really tough to play from. Um, I don't know if I mentioned it before, but Epicenter had um, how VK played it was really well. I remember this is from like 2 years ago, but I remember they played it really well as like a hard zone team. Um, but yeah, I think the rotations from it can be kind of tough because the Monument team's gonna be more well looted than you. The Overlook team's gonna be more well looted than you, and also you have the Climatizer team on your back, which is pretty scary. So I think it can be tough to play from Epicenter, which is why I have it as my 20th pick. Um, what's it called? Survey Camp gets way better if there's not an Epicenter team. And having like both an Epicenter and a Survey Camp team's a little rough. It just makes that side of the map like kind of congested. But I would take Epicenter as my 20th pick. But I think you can I think you could just say it's because I lean towards playing zone. When like Big Mod, I would leave Big Mod undrafted, but Big Mod leans more towards playing edge. So I think if you're an edge team, you would take Big Mod as early, like you can swap that with Geyser. I think if you're a hard edge team, then playing Big Mod is totally reasonable, but I certainly wouldn't take it early. Heckin' the main problem with Big Mod is that the guns from the shop are good early, But once you get a little bit later into the game, when people like have their guns looted, or when they have their guns more kitted, it just you that advantage you get early fades pretty fast. Um, so I don't think it's very good. And the position, Big Mod's position on the map is like really bad. It's on the very edge. And you don't really have a ton of loot. You have a fair amount, but it's not as much as like other uh good better better hard edge POIs. Fragment, I think, should always go undrafted. I think if you were picking Fragment, you're kind of trolling. All it needs is a survey beacon, or I'm sorry, all it needs is a ring console. And if it has a ring console, then it literally might jump to like 12th. Because then it is suddenly like a good zone POI. But it literally doesn't have a ring console, and you it is also in a cluttered slash congested area of the map with like the overlook team, with a monument team, with a potential epicenter team, that it's just really hard to play from. You get two survey beacons, which help a little bit, but generally, I think at least if you're playing competitive, I think Fragment should always go undrafted. I think like Big Mod, Epicenter, and even like Skyhook, um, and almost Geyser. I think like these four are reasonable to go undrafted. I think Geyser should typically get picked. I might kind of say like these three. Um, but yeah, it kind of just depends on the team and the play style. But that is it for the video. If you have any like questions on how to play certain POIs, or even if you have your own loop path or like to play things a little bit differently, I would love to hear it. I kind of just wanted to make this YouTube video as a resource. Um, I have the Stormpoint one made. You can find it on my Twitter. I'll probably make a. I'm currently recording this during EWC like year 6 split 1 playoffs, which I want to um go over their kind of review the POVs from that before I make a video talking about Stormpoint. And I'll also update my one for E District as well. But uh, Ward's Edge has been around for years, and also I think it's getting an update pretty soon, hopefully. But this is the most solved map out there, because it's been in competitive play for so long that some of my POIs or some of my like loop paths are a little bit different, or a little bit more like experimental. Like I do think there is some room for fine tuning and improvement, but overall I think this map is just more solved than any other map, because it's been played competitively for years. Other than that, I'll catch everyone later.